live streams. So happy to see you all here. Hang on, let me adjust the screen so I can see all you guys. And I'll just back right up. Hi guys. I am so happy to see you all here. Just so you know, my birthday is coming up on Sunday, and the best present in the world would be if you either bought a copy of Was I Ever Normal, which is for sale at Barnes & Nobles across the country, in store and online. If they don't have it in stock at your local Barnes & Nobles, they can order it for free and have it available in 2-3 business days. It's also for sale at all Books A Million across the country and on Amazon, as well as hundreds of independent bookstores across the U.S. and internationally. Just search Was I Ever Normal by Becca Pava. I'll post it in the comment section as well. And if you're looking for a less pricey but equally enjoyable book, you can go to Becca Pava's website, Chronically Alive, at www.chronicallyalive.org/store and find Changing Destiny's Destiny, which looks like this. And the first page of it looks like this. And it has been completely rewritten and is for sale as an ebook for only $14.99. And again, it's in the store on my website. I will also post the link for that in the comments section as well. Anyway, back to the reading. We last left Cassie in the hospital after she overdosed on aspirin. She spent several days in the pediatric intensive care unit before being interviewed by a psychiatrist, who didn't really want to put her in the hospital. Cassie had no idea what she actually wanted and got really overwhelmed. When Fellingham told her to peel off the scab on her stomach that she had cut open the week before, there was nothing to stop her. As soon as she peeled the scab, blood blossomed through the sheets and blankets and pooled out. When the crisis worker saw the blood and wound, he decided she needed to be hospitalized and began looking for a hospital bed and an ambulance ride. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? Any questions before we begin? No questions. All right, so we'll start with Chapter 30, Round 2 at Bailey Hill Hospital's Pediatric Psych Unit. Once again, 2 EMTs strapped me into a stretcher for my third ambulance ride in 24 hours. Once again, I heard the voices screaming at me about how disappointing I was and what a failure I was. Once again, I felt desperation and frustration with myself and with my life. Once again, I saw the exhaustion, glimmers of fear, and sadness in my mom's eyes. Once again, I found myself at the hospital talking to the intake person and then walking onto a locked unit and hearing the doors click back in place behind me. Once again, I was subjected to a strip search. And put through an admissions interview. Once again, I stepped on the now familiar scale behind the nurse's station. Once again, I heard mention of eating disorder protocol as soon as my weight registered as 70.3 pounds. Once again, seeing my weight loss was the only bright spot in the black hole of depression that I'd been sucked into. My second time around at Bailey Hill Hospital was very much like my first. I was assigned to a room with not much in it, besides a bed and a dresser. I was assigned to the same doctor, but a different social worker. But this social worker was just as bad as the social worker from last time. At first, it seemed like maybe things wouldn't be as bad. they had been a year earlier. The staff that showed me to my room had a gentle and calm demeanor. I met a girl from the younger kids group. She smiled at me and Perky the penguin. I thought that maybe she seemed like she could be my friend. They started me with an art therapist who met with me and talked to me. She would give me different assignments, like drawing what happy looks like, or making inspirational collages, like drawing family portraits. Then we would talk about what my art meant to me. The groups weren't that bad. I just had to show up and then sit there and look like I was actually paying attention. That way, staff wouldn't bother me too much. But then, the staff started picking on me. They would tell me that I wasn't speaking loud enough. And once again, they claimed that I was being passive aggressive by speaking in a whisper. They told me my behavior was too childish, that I needed to act more mature, more grown up, more like a teenager. It didn't matter to them that I had a developmental disability. They expected me to act and respond in ways I was incapable of behaving due to my emotional delay. Every morning, they woke me up at 6 a.m. when the night shift was still on and had me pee in a cup and change into a hospital gown. Then I had to walk down the hall behind the nurse's station and step onto the cold metal scale. If I hadn't gained at least a quarter of a pound, they increased the amounts I had to eat. I wasn't allowed in the bathrooms at all after meals, and I wasn't allowed in the bathrooms at other times if I didn't have a female staff with me. If I didn't eat everything on my tray, they brought out a 350-calorie nutritional supplement. They warned me that if I didn't drink the whole thing, then they would give me an NG tube for 3 days. I did what they wanted. It made me feel horrible inside. I started gaining weight and losing self-respect. Family meetings were the worst form of torture anyone could come up with. It was in the second family torture session that they once again started throwing around that borderline personality disorder diagnosis. Borderline personality disorder. Those 3 words stung like acid rain and burned like fire. Those words meant one thing. They meant that no one was going to help me with the real underlying issues. I tried not to cry. I tried to stay stoic and strong. I tried to pretend that my insides weren't being torn apart. My parents sat there agreeing with the social worker. I felt like the 3 of them were ganging up on me. The third family meeting occurred a week and a half into my hospitalization. It was in this meeting that the topic of residential treatment was once again brought up with my parents. Because I was no longer purging my medication, the voices had been fairly silent. Normally, their silence was a good thing. It meant I could be my own person. But after the social worker brought up residential, the silence in the room was both deafening and suffocating. The silence was so thick that I could barely breathe. My heart took a break from beating. The idea of residential terrified me. It meant being away from my parents, the 2 people I loved and needed so deeply that it hurt me. It meant more angry staff and unforgiving rules. It meant more accusations and punishments called consequences. Finally, I dredged up the courage to look up from the floor into the eyes of both my parents. Both my parents' eyes were moist. The silence stretched on. Finally, my mom spoke. I don't think residential treatment is the best course of action for Cassie at this moment. My dad nodded in agreement. I saw a single tear drip down his cheek. All I wanted at that moment was to hug both my parents and never let go. The social worker nodded, and the topic of residential wasn't brought up again for the rest of my time at Bailey Hill Hospital. After I gained 8 pounds, the doctors and nurses decided that my weight was out of the danger zone. While I was still considered incredibly underweight, they felt I could continue working on healthy eating on an outpatient basis. They decided my behavior had improved and my depression seemed to have lessened. They continued to pick on me for not displaying more age-appropriate behavior, but they were satisfied for the most part and began discussing discharge plans. On the day of my discharge, I was woken up like normal at 6 a.m. Wiping the sleep from my eyes, I walked to the bathroom to pee in my millionth pee cup. Then I followed the nurse down the hall to the scale behind the nurse's station. It registered 78 pounds. I cringed and clenched my jaw muscles as I reassured myself that I could lose the weight just as easily as I had gained it. Later that morning, I lined up with the other eating disorder girls as we got our blood pressures checked with the child-sized blood pressure cuff. I knew we were all thrilled that we still needed the child size in our teenage years. It was only a few minutes later when my dad came to bring me home. I was only going to be home for one night because our family was planning on vacationing in Israel for 6 weeks of the summer. We had forgotten to tell the hospital about our vacation plans. During the discharge meeting, right before my dad signed the discharge paperwork to free me from Bailey Hill Hospital for the second time around, he mentioned needing 6 weeks' worth of prescriptions. The doctor stopped, looked at me, then he looked at my dad. She cannot be out of a doctor's care for 6 whole weeks, Dr. Nolan told my dad. She's still in a fragile condition and needs to be closely monitored. My dad shook his head. She really wants to go. I think getting a break from everything will be good for her. We can call her psychiatrist at home if there are any problems. Dr. Nolan and my dad discussed this for a while longer. I was so scared they weren't going to let me go. Finally, my dad said he was going to sue them if I wasn't discharged. Dr. Nolan sighed and told my dad he could sign me out against medical advice and get the prescriptions from my home psychiatrist if that's what he really wanted to do. My dad picked up the pen and signed the paper. Then, for probably the first time in my whole second stay at Bailey Hill Hospital, I smiled. We waltzed out the door with my hand in my dad's tight and protective grip. The plane ride to Israel was long, but I could feel shivers of excitement racing through my body. I had only been out of the hospital for a day, and here I was on the airplane, so far from the hospital and from the difficulties that had haunted most of my life. The whole time I was on the airplane, I didn't hear any of the voices. I didn't even feel or see anything strange. In my head, I knew that it might be because of the new medication called Zyprexa. It was a medicine Dr. Nolan thought would help me with my mood swings, but it was also a newer generation antipsychotic in the effects of eating again. But part of me wondered if maybe Bellingham and the others only lived in the United States. The idea that I might be free of intrusive voices for the entire 6 weeks of our vacation thrilled me. I remember laughing a lot on the plane and feeling this free feeling bubbling up inside me. When we arrived in Israel, everyone on the airplane clapped. I clapped too, for many reasons. The airport in Israel was a whole lot smaller than the JFK airport in New York City had been. Outside, everything looked different. The air was drier and hotter. Everything was browner. There were rows and rows of palm trees dotting the landscape outside. Our apartment was in Jerusalem. We took a taxi there. The driver took us careening down the road at about 85 miles an hour. We swerved in and out of traffic, and I could feel myself being jerked around in my seat. Several different times I wondered if I had survived everything this far, only to be killed by a crazy Israeli cab driver. Somehow, we all made it to the apartment in one piece and piled out of the car and up the stairs with 6 weeks' worth of luggage in our hands. The sixth day in Israel was my 14th birthday, and it was the first time I really slipped up, but definitely not the last. The food in Israel turned out to be really good, and I was hungrier than I ever remember feeling. The first few days, I figured it was okay to eat a little more than I usually allowed myself. After all, I literally had been starving myself for almost a year, and I was still considered to be quite underweight for my height. By the sixth day of eating way more than I was used to, I started to decide that my clothes felt tighter on me. The thought that I might have gained a lot of weight terrified me and made me feel sick to my stomach. Visions of myself weighing 300 pounds flashed through my head over and over. I clutched my stomach. It felt distended and swollen. That night after dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom, knowing I had to reverse the path of all the food I had just ingested. I had already taken my nighttime meds, but I would just have to risk losing them. The thought of gaining weight was too frightening to me. There was no other option. In the bathroom, I stuck my fingers down my throat, wiggled, and then vomited. I repeated this process several times until nothing was coming up but bile. I don't think I could even breathe properly until I was certain that I was free of food. After purging, I washed my hands, wiped down the toilet seat, and sprayed my air freshener around the room. Then, on impulse, I opened the medicine cabinet. I don't know what I expected to find in there, but when I found the diet pills, I knew I had to try a few, just to see if they actually worked. The directions said to take one, so I popped 2 with some water from the sink. Then I quickly replaced the bottle and exited the bathroom. And that is the end of chapter 30. So, questions, comments, what do you guys think? Anything? Any questions or comments for me, guys? What do you think of the chapter? Yeah, I really did go to Israel. I actually lived in Israel when I was 5, 6, and 7. I have a lot of family in Israel. We went back when I was 10. We went back again when I was 14, and then when I was 18, and then again when I was in my early 20s. And that's the last time I went back, but I ended up in the hospital that time. But that is based on the truth. What's not based on the truth is the eating disorder. I do not have an eating disorder. I have gastroparesis that got misdiagnosed as an eating disorder, so I did a lot of research into eating disorders. And I talked to a lot of other kids with eating disorders, but I do not actually have an eating disorder. But I really did go to Israel, yeah. We stayed there for 6 weeks. There's more about it in the next chapter, about the trip to Israel is continued in the next chapter. Oh, okay, Vivian. Well, thank you for coming. I'm glad you're able to make it. I always enjoy having you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Thanks, Vivian. Any other questions or comments, or should I shut this down? All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming. Check out. Yeah, it was great that she got a break from the hospital. That's exactly what she needed. Check out hang on a second. Oh, I dropped the papers on the floor. Check out my blog, because I started posting a new section of my blog called Mindfulness Practice, and it's a whole new blog section. If you go to chronicallyalive.org, here. Hang on. Oh, I don't have it up here. If you go to chronicallyalive.org and click on mindfulness practice, you'll see my new. Oh, you read that section, Vivian? Did you like it? It's my newest section of my blog. Yeah, mindfulness is great. It's really helpful. It's how I stay positive. It's really a way of life. I love Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh is amazing. I'm reading The Art of Communicating right now. That's the book I'm reading right now by him, and it's really inspiring. It's so helpful for physical, mental, anything. Thich Nhat Hanh is just amazing. Mindfulness is just amazing. Well, I guess I'll shut down here, and I'll try to do the next live stream soon. Love all you guys so much. Take care. Bye.